You know, in a sense, everything I've done is due to data, and it's worked out pretty well. And all of you in the room are experts in building great content, and with the great content, you're building a great audience. And so, naturally, you should be really rich. But for whatever reason, you're not. You know, there's that old adage, if you play poker and you sit at the table, and if you can't figure out who the sucker is in the room, then it must be you, right? Guess what? Speaking with my publisher hat on here, we're the suckers because we're playing a stacked game. There is asymmetric information. Everybody knows more about your audience, the audience that you've built, than you. And they're using it to arbitrage your audience, and ad networks and exchanges and others are getting rich, and you're thinking about, how do I avoid that getting hit in the head with a hammer again today? Because that's what it's like being a publisher. Boom, 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 every day. Someone calls you up and says, hey, the campaign's not working. I'm going to have to cancel unless you can adjust your rates, right? It's just the worst. It's the worst treadmill to be on. And you know, let's recognize, managing data is hard. So getting a hold of the right data, figuring out what it all means, scaling it, managing it in a privacy-compliant way, and just determining the complexity of it, right? It's hard, but it's not as hard as you may think. And that's what I'm going to spend my time talking with you about today. And I thought this would be a good starting point, which is everybody's talking about data. But data is kind of a big nebulous term. I thought it might be interesting to say, well, what data really matters? And so for kicks and giggles, we pulled about a month of data at Acxiom across all clients, online and offline, just a huge sample set, and said, what data variables really matter? And we looked at everything according to conversion performance. So not clicks, but actual conversions. However conversions were measured. So sometimes it's an in-store purchase, sometimes it's an online purchase, sometimes it's someone going to investigate content or research something, however the advertiser, the marketer wanted to define it. And this is what we found. If we isolated each individual data element and looked at it relative to the control group of untargeted ads on the same placements, the best contextual schemes, on average, across all of those campaigns, generated about 132% lift relative to untargeted ads. So that may be something like a retailer advertising in certain times of day. It may be something like someone using contextual targeting and serving an ad based on the article that someone's surfing. In contrast, if you go to the best demographic scheme, the best demographic scheme relative to control generated 550% lift. So these may be things like someone's zip code, their gender, their prism cluster, a whole host of things that might come from social media. So 550%. And then the best behavioral scheme generated on average about 1,200% lift relative to untargeted media. And you know, it's interesting, when I saw these numbers, it reminded me, I published something in ClickZ like 5-6 years ago from the ad network side, and so I got it out and I looked at it, and it was for a big box retailer, and it was the identical pattern. Time and time again, whether it's an aggregate or we're looking at single clients, this kind of pattern exists.